Hey, welcome to Reliable Source. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Kirsty, and we're both journalists at Europe's biggest newsroom, BBC News, and we also work on the BBC News TikTok account. And every week we come here and tell you about the stories that we have been the most obsessed with.
This week, do Gen Z boys and men really think feminism is bad?
And what's it like to be abandoned by your mum as a baby? We speak to one girl who wants others to not go through the same thing.
I just didn't know who I was, and it was just really sad because I thought that my mum couldn't take care of me, she was too young or something, but to find out that I was abandoned was just like, yeah.
Also, why is everyone crying over this Netflix series?
This is Reliable Source.
So we have to talk about this Netflix series, which has got everyone on TikTok crying their eyes out.
Hello, this is just a PSA that you may be seeing this show one day on your Netflix account thinking, oh, that's so sweet. It's coming out right around Valentine's Day. It looks like a love story. It looks beautiful. Don't watch it unless you want to have your heart ripped out, stomped on, spat at, and blended up in a blender.
Is your heart in a blender, spat at, stomped on?
Okay, I'm not going to go that far. I basically was out of the loop with this show one day.
So this is one day?
Yeah, one day. And also, guys, let's just put a big fat spoiler warning
Spoiler!
right here. Like the fattest of spoiler warnings. We're going to get into this. We're really going to get our teeth into this.
Let's talk about the story. So Emma and Dexter, they meet at their graduation.
Yeah.
Imagine meeting someone at graduation. You've finished uni. All right. So these guys, they meet on the last day at a party. They're dancing together, dancey. Then they spend the night together. It's not what you think, guys. It's not what you think. They just spend the night.
They chat.
They chat. So they chat together. They figure out that they actually really like each other. They like the vibe. They're really like magnetic. There's some connection. So they're connecting, not in the ways you're thinking, but they're connecting. And they continue to connect over a series of different years. So in each different episode, you see them a couple of years later for that one day, the 15th of July. And they're just meeting each other, doing normal things, and like their lives both go in different directions.
I watched it last night. I don't want to lie to you. I did watch all 14 episodes in 24 hours. It was really good. They kept missing each other. There were ships in the night, the two of them. And then, that goes on for years. And you kind of get like each episode moves you forward a couple of years. And then you hit episode 13.
Oh my gosh.
Again, spoiler alert. But it's just going so well for them. They move in. They're finally like, oh, God, we're in love. We're going to get married. We're going to have babies.
Only after he had a child with someone else.
Yeah, there's mess on the way. But they're messy, but they're perfect. And they wind up together eventually. And then she gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Just on her way to meet him, bang.
They were actually
and there's
going
no
to get a new flat.
There's no warning.
Yeah.
She's just cycling to meet him and you're like, oh, that's so cute. They're going to meet up. And then it was a real shock. I'd actually heard that something bad happens, but I was still not prepared for that. And we're not the only ones that are emotional. I was watching this on the way to work and I was like, oh, I don't really get many tears, but I was like, oh my God. There was no tear there. But I was emotional. You said you cried twice.
I cried twice.
And TikTok is full of people literally sobbing at this show.
I thought it was going to be a really cute lovey-dovey one. Well, it is a really cute lovey-dovey one, but it's really sad.
No matter how long you hit it off with something.
Oh my God.
You don't really know who
I
they
just
are.
finished it. I can't stop crying.
I was not prepared for this episode. Guys, go and watch. And then let me know in the comments if I'm being dramatic or not.
I really didn't think it would hit me this hard. This is not a fun rom-com. That was not made clear enough. Anything to do with love stories where they just don't seem to get together at the right time really gets me.
Like, why has it really got us in a chokehold?
I think it's because love is just so complicated, and I think a lot of people are relating to this kind of idea that they've met someone who they aren't necessarily like their perfect match, but they just kind of connect with them in that way. How you might love someone that's not necessarily good for you. Like, I don't think that Dexter was a good match for Emma, if I'm being honest.
They made no sense on paper, but they had a connection. I think also the reason everyone is so upset about this series is that, like that girl said in the TikTok, this is a Valentine's Day release. Like, it looks romantic, it looks so cute, it looks like it's just, no, you get to so many episodes through and it's just like, oh, this is a little love story, it's like normal people. It's like, what's the vibe? Are they going to get together? And then suddenly you are just like, oh, well, that's all over, and it's
But
just
do you
now
know what,
really
like-
depressing.
But this is a more realistic version, I think. It actually showed what can happen in life. But anyways, I digress. Guess what?
What?
I actually met the cast. Yes, I met the cast. I met Leo and Amber at Netflix HQ. Here's a little video to see what I got up to. Come with me to interview the cast of One Day. So I'm off to Netflix to speak to Amber Mod and Leo Woodall about their new limited series, and I've already been sent the first couple of episodes. The type of interview that I'm about to do is called a junket. It's kind of like the one in that film Notting Hill with Julia Roberts. I'm here in Netflix HQ. Okay, now waiting for Leo and Amber to come back from lunch. When I finally go into the room, there's lots of lights and there's just a seat there waiting for me. So they're both seated opposite me, which reminded me of those police investigation scenes in films, like light shining in our faces. Right, like we have our phones on us, and like if people don't like text you every day, there's these unwritten rules.
It almost meant more if you wanted to connect with someone back then. Like the effort that Emma and Dexter put into writing letters to each other. Do you know what I mean? Like it meant more to keep in touch with someone.
We had such a laugh, and it was pretty much over. When it was done, I grabbed my SD cards and I was off back to BBC HQ.
Well, that's so fun. I feel really starstruck now that I've seen the series that you actually got to meet them. So I've actually never done a junket, which is what they're called, which is like where they organise the press for a film or something. What was it like? Like, what was the vibe?
Same. I've actually never done one before. I've done a lot of like red carpets, done interviews here, news channel TV and all that stuff. So you interview them and there's other people in the room. So it kind of is a bit intense. Yeah. It's probably the most intense interview that I've ever done. And I was just kind of like sat opposite them and I was like, hey, but there's like a big space between us. I'm like, how are you doing? But yeah, first time for everything. And interviews are up on BBC News, TikTok, tickety-tock.
Doing the journalism we all need.
If you're looking for your next podcast obsession, we think you might like Murder They Wrote with Laura Whitmore and Ian Sterling.
You can hear some of the wildest, jaw-dropping crime stories on BBC Sounds. Anyways, where were we? So I worked on a TikTok for BBC News the other day about whether it's harder to be a man than a woman. That was our first question in the TikTok because King's College London have done this massive survey and they spoke to men under 30 and more men under 30 than boomers thought that feminism has done more harm than good, and a quarter of them thought that it's harder to be a man than a woman. Some quite interesting stats, I thought.
So I had a chat earlier with Dr. Alice Evans. She's an expert in gender equality, and she's been having a look at the ideology gap between young men and young women. She spoke to me about there being like 3 reasons for this. The first thing is economic. So if the country is not in a good economic state, then people often have this like mentality where they think that if someone else is getting opportunity, it's taking away from their opportunity. So for example, like if there's a basket of apples and I took 2, if you had that negative mentality, you'd think that I've taken apples that now mean you have less apples for you. So that's one of the reasons, economic. The second is technology. Technology has advanced so quickly in recent years. Obviously, we've got social media now. So like you can get into a ideological rabbit hole where you just see things that agree with your view and you never see anything that necessarily disagrees with your view. Because we are all in our little social media bubbles, that's affecting the way that we think and that's affecting the way that we kind of like see each other in the real world. So the third thing to add to the technology is that there's like cultural entrepreneurs. Cultural entrepreneurs are basically creators that kind of see that demand for these kind of extreme topics that we're all kind of falling in, and they become the spokespeople.
Yeah.
They make money out of it.
I wanted to kind of speak to someone who goes a bit further than just these views of like feminism's done more harm than good. I wanted to see like if you keep going down those corners of the internet, where do you end up? And I found this guy on TikTok.
It's taken this long to retrain a lot of my feelings and a lot of my understandings of the world.
Who talks about like the red pill community, which is basically, if you've seen The Matrix, if you take the red pill, you see the truth. And so they call themselves the red pill community, which is where like they think they can see the truth about the world, which is that like women aren't there to be respected. They're kind of like naturally disposed to have loads of partners, and men have to be like these alpha men in order to win them and stuff like that. And this guy Luke, he's 32 now, but he's come out the other side of it and he kind of like regrets being in it. And so basically I wanted to talk to him as like, how far can this go if you get too far into these like splitting gender, like us versus them kind of mindsets. So he had a wife, he got married when he was really young, like 20, and his wife cheated on him. And when she cheated on him, he kind of felt like he needed a way to deal with it. And he found himself in these communities where they kind of justified his feelings, because he was obviously thinking like, why did she do that? Why am I not good enough? Like feelings of insecurity. And then these forums say things like, women are always going to cheat. They don't respect you. You need to like do it back to them, and you need to like spin plates and have multiple women on the go, because women are disposed to like not be with you. So that's how he got into it, and he said that's like a really common way of people getting into these things. And he told me a bit about how he got out of it, because he said this affected his life so much for like 3 or 4 years. So after we hear from Luke, we're going to get Nathan Brown Bennett in the studio, who is only 21. He's from the UK, so we kind of wanted a younger UK-based voice on this. But first, let's hear from Luke. When was the moment that you kind of snapped out of it and thought, actually, I don't believe any of this?
It was definitely a gradual process. I do attribute a lot of that to my ex-girlfriend, not my ex-wife, but my ex-girlfriend. Having that closeness again with somebody of the opposite gender, I guess it started to heal that damage and see that I could trust again, and see that I could be with a person who appreciated me and who was willing to talk with me and go through things with me. That slow process is what helped kind of bring me back into reality. And then I started feeling, and I hadn't felt in a long time.
So that was Luke's experience, but here in the studio we have 21-year-old Nathan Brown Bennett. He is a spoken word artist. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Nathan.
Hi.
So Nathan, what do you kind of think about these online communities? Are they really easy to kind of like get involved with and see?
I mean, 100%. It's always starting off as like a joke or like trolling. Sometimes it's just people showing their opinion, and then all of a sudden they gain traction. So I would say, yeah, 100%. It's way too easy to get involved.
And what do you think about this kind of like ideology gap between young men and young women? It's a gap that's far wider than older men and older women. What do you think the reasons for that is?
I feel like it's the power that social media has right now. It's definitely the fact that everybody's open to a lot of information. Everybody's open to the ability to say what they want, and also be rewarded for it, very literally. So because of these reasons, young people, especially young boys, they're like, oh, well, if we say this, we know our boys have got us. And it keeps on going, keeps spiraling, and there's no repercussions for this.
And do you think that young boys look at like internet influencers as role models and actually want a lifestyle like them?
I feel like nowadays 100%. A lot of boys look on internet and they say, oh yeah, this guy here, he's providing facts, and clearly he's doing well and he knows what he's talking about because he has a Bugatti, because he has a house, a mansion, because he has all of these women. And it's these social media kind of stuff, it's these rap video-esque stuff that people value. And when they see someone who has these things, they value that person instead of actually looking at the information that they're being given and fact-checking it.
But a lot of this reminds me of what Luke said in the conversation I had with him, where he said that like when he got really deep into these like really dangerous corners of like masculinity stuff, he said it all came from insecurity. And like these kind of online communities, they choose things that they know you're insecure about, which is like you've mentioned, like your clothes, your money, your emotions, like being too vulnerable. I've actually got a clip of him talking about how they kind of preyed on how insecure you feel, so we can have a listen to that.
I would say I'm 100% out of the community, and I've been for a very long time. You have a generation of young men who do feel lost. There's been a redefining of masculinity, and not one person has the right answer.
What would be your advice for not going down the rabbit hole almost?
Nobody who tells you they have the answer has the answer. Anybody who is trying to tell you this is the right way to be a man or this is the right way to be a woman, they're snake oil salesmen. They're trying to get something out of you. It preys on insecurity. It preys on loneliness and emotions.
Nathan, I noticed you were like nodding at parts.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you kind of agreed with?
I agree with a lot of it. If we are going to first start helping men, helping boys discover and understand their masculinity. We do need to have open, honest, and helpful discussions. Even though it might be more difficult to be a woman than a man, even though it might feel more difficult to be a man than it is to be a woman, these are both of our issues. And if we want to solve it, if we want equality for each other, if we want us all to be okay, we're going to have to evaluate these and see how can we come together and say, you know what, I didn't know that, I'm going to solve this. Or I'm going to make sure that for me, myself, I see that and I make sure I'm not a part of XYZ. And we solve it together.
Well, thanks so much for coming in, Nathan. It was really interesting to talk to you. You've given us a little insight into a world we're not a part of. So,
thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
I really want to talk about this story. A creator called Toyin Odumala, she posted a stitch to the BBC News story that we did about a baby getting abandoned.
A newborn baby girl has been found wrapped in a towel in a shopping bag in East London.
Yeah, it was the breaking news post we did, wasn't it? About there was a baby found wrapped up in like a carrier bag, just a few hours old, who was found in Newham. And she stitched because something like pretty much exactly the same had happened to her.
Toyin's now 22, but when she was just a couple of hours old, her mother did abandon her and she made a TikTok about it. So here's the TikTok.
So what happened to me was I was abandoned by my biological mum. She left me outside a block of flats, and it's so ironic because 2 dog walkers found me like this newborn baby. I was wrapped in a denim jacket. This baby was wrapped in a towel and a shopping bag, and I just feel like this needs to stop. Like, I feel like there should be a petition for drop boxes where you can leave your newborn baby that's open 24/7 or something.
So Toyin's with us now. Welcome, Toyin.
Hello. Hi.
Oh, it's nice to finally meet you. We saw your TikTok. What kind of prompted you to make that video?
I was just really like triggered by it because I haven't really seen much stories about newborns being abandoned, and literally I just woke up in the middle of the night and it was the first thing that came up on my For You page, and I was just like, I just started crying because I was just like, why is this still happening? And yeah, like I just felt really, really, really torn, and I just felt like I had to just, you know, just share my story and just speak up about it.
Can you kind of run us through what happened?
So my birth mum left me by flights of stairs, just like a random person's house outside, and I was found by 2 men walking their dogs, and then I was taken. They called the police, and then I was taken into hospital to be checked, and yeah, and then I was put into care.
And you were like a newborn at this point?
Yeah, I was a newborn. I was literally hours old.
Oh, just
and yeah, and then yeah, my umbilical cord was still attached as well. Then I was taken into hospital to be checked, and I was put into care for 4 months, and then I was adopted.
When did you find out what had happened?
When I was 11, yeah. I knew I was adopted when I was 7, and then I found out everything in more detail when I was 11, yeah.
What kind of impact has it had?
I just didn't know who I was, and it was just really sad because I thought that my mum just maybe wanted to put me up for adoption just for like normal reasons, like she just couldn't take care of me, she was too young or something. But to find out that I was abandoned was just like, yeah,
And how did you find out?
I asked my adoptive mum more questions about myself, and then we went through the adoption team to ask them, and yeah, they gave me more information, and I also wrote a letter to my birth mum, and she wrote back to me and she told me like everything that happened. So yeah.
Did she tell you like why she'd done it?
Yeah, she's from Ivory Coast, so she said that she didn't have papers for her to stay in the country, and yeah, she was just saying that it was a hard decision for her to make, but she felt like that's what she had to do. That was the only option for her to do at the time. So
you've said you want baby boxes introduced, which are around in the US and other parts of Europe and things.
What is a baby box?
So it's a place where new mothers or expecting mothers can go to seek advice, and also a place where the new mothers can go discreetly and anonymously to place their babies if they do think of abandoning them.
Do you know what they kind of look like in other countries?
Yeah, so it's literally outside a building. It's in designated areas such as police stations, fire stations, and hospitals. So yeah, and it's open 24/7 as well. So it's literally outside a building, and it's like you open up a shutter and put your baby in there, and inside it's temperature controlled, so the baby will be warm. And then there's an alarm that rings on the other side once you place your baby in there, and then authorities are called straight away, so the baby gets sent to hospital to get checked. We need to tell mothers that, you know, they have another option instead of them having to resort to do something like that, because that's like probably the hardest thing you could ever think of doing, because, you know, you've gave birth to the baby, you've held it in your belly for 9 months, so to have that support and know that there is another option for them.
So you've got a petition as well about your baby box. It's got over 40,000 signatures.
Yeah, I just want it to be implemented like ASAP. Hopefully it will get to the government.
So the government have said that improving care before, during and after pregnancy is one of their top priorities, and that they've expanded care in England for expectant mothers and bereaved mothers.
I don't think that that's going to change much. Some people are scared. That's the whole point of the Safe Haven baby boxes, because it's anonymous and discreet. So I feel like some people don't want to go to their health services and talk about their mental health issues.
And you said you'd also like to meet the people who found you.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say to them?
I'll just give them a big hug, and I just feel like they saved me, and just thank them because I'm here today and I'm able to share this.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing it. It's been really, really good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for listening to this week's Reliable Source. We'll be back next week and every week.
Remember to tap subscribe or follow so you don't miss an episode.
We're available to watch on YouTube, listen on BBC Sounds, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
So until next time,
always get your news from a reliable source.
Bye.